In this one, we are going to be using model form sets or general form sets to update the inventory and pricing for all the different variances inside of any particular product. Now, this is, of course, separate from editing things about the product, but it's going to give us the ability to at least update numbers like our pricing and inventory. So to do this, we're using something called a model form factory. Before we actually jump into the model form, what we're going to do is actually create a list view specifically for our variances. And this is going to be only for our admin. So I'm going to copy the product list view, and it's going to go basically off of this same sort of idea, but instead of being product list view, it's going to be the variation list view. And then we're going to give it a model class of variation, not product. And then the query set is variation.objects.all. But instead of using that query set, we actually want to get it off of a product. So to get the product itself, let's actually think about how we're going to do our URL first. So let's jump into urls.py. And we already have this product detail view, so that's actually what we're going to be coming off with. We're going to use this for our variation list view, but this time we're just going to say inventory afterwards. And this is where we can edit the inventory if we're the manager. If we're not the manager, then we will be able to just see the inventory. But we're really concerned about editing it, so that's what we're going to be focusing on. So this is going to be our new URL, and we'll say product inventory. And the reason it's not taking the actual product as the model is because of how we're going to be working with this object in particular. Right, so the variation or the object is going to be slightly different than this. So we'll say define get query set. Oh, we already have the query set there. So we want to use the actual keyword argument that's coming through here. So we'll do self.keywordargs, and we'll just print what that is. So print self.keywordargs, and let's go ahead and import this into our URLs and change it out as our product detail view as list. So we'll go back in here, products, and let's go ahead and run the server. Click on a product, and we'll go to inventory. And now we've got this object problem, and that has to do with changing all the names here. And we actually don't need this get context data right now, so I'm just going to comment that out anyway. We refresh in here, product does not exist. So variation list, we want to add that into our templates. So variation list.html, and I'm going to keep it as the same as the product list, but we'll make some changes later. So refresh in here, and now I see the variation based off of the inventory for this particular product. Now we have two different things, and it's actually getting the product inventory itself, which is pretty nice. So it's actually already getting the product that's based off of this. Right, so if we go to a different product, go into to inventory, gives us the same stuff. And that's because that 2 has a default inventory. It doesn't have anything else. So it's actually giving us all of the models themselves, which is what we want to see. But we also did print out the keyword args, and we're seeing primary key is 2. So we want to set the product pk equals to self.keywordargs.get, and we'll get the primary key. So we'll say if product key, then we'll say product is equal to get object or 404, and it's going to be product, and primary key is equal to product pk. And then finally, our query set is going to equal to query set.filter product equals to product. Or better yet, we should just do variation.objects.filter product equals to product. That way we get all of the query set variation, and then we'll just return that back. And now we can get rid of these other two calls because we don't need those anymore. So now if we go back into our query set inventory, for 2 it says nothing. If we go to 1 and we look at the inventory here, we see 2 different items here. And that's kind of what we want to see. We actually want to see the variation that's associated to that. So that's good. So now that we have this query set, we want to define a new method called define post, and it's going to get self and request, and then args, and then keyword args. So we're going to do something here. For now, I'm just going to return for now, just raise HTTP 404 if there's a post request. Again, we will do something here with the post requests. And let's reinitialize the get context data stuff. These two things we no longer need. Cool. So now we've got this variation list. So what we need to do is create a form that's going to handle our variations. So inside of products, we're going to make a new file here called forms.py. And we'll go from Django import forms, and then from .models import variation. So now we're going to create a form class for this. So we'll call it class variation inventory form, and it's forms.model form. And we set the details with it with class meta. So model is equal to the variation. And then we want to have the fields set. In this case, all we want to change are a few things here. First of all, I'm going to add price and sales price. And then finally, we're going to have the inventory numbers. All right, so this is the form that we're actually going to edit our inventory stuff with. And now, since we have this form, let's go ahead back into our view, and we're going to import it in here. So we'll do from.forms import variation inventory form. So now we need to create a form set factory. So back into our forms, let's actually look at the documentation for form sets or model form sets. Oops, not model form factory, but model form set factory. So we're going to go ahead and copy this from django.forms.models, model form set factory. So inside of forms, we're going to import this. So model form set factory is what we want here. So underneath this class, we're going to set a new item down here, and we'll call it variation inventory form set equals to model form set factory, and it's going to take in the model, so variation, and then it takes in the form, which is variation inventory form set, and then we can also say like extra, like the number of fields extra that we might want to have, which we'll see what that does in a moment. So now that we have this, let's go back into our view. And in our forms, we're actually going to now import that form set instead of the form. So it's going to work very similar to a form itself, but it's not quite a form. So we'll add it into context, and we'll call it form set, put it equal to this. And we do want to initialize it. And then finally, in our post data, we'll print out request.post. So now that we have this, we can add this form set into our template. So if we jump into our template here, we are going to go down here and just say formset.asP for as paragraph. And we're going to create a form, add a method, and of course it's post. And then we're going to add the action of nothing. And then we're going to close off this form. We want to add an input submit button. So input type equals to submit, value equals to update, and we can add a class of btn. Okay, and then we want to have our CSRF token, CSRF token. Cool. So now let's go ahead and take a look at this. Inside of inventory, now we have the ability to see a form with the type of inventory, which is cool. And so that extra stuff, if I go back into our forms and change extra to 0, and I refresh in here, it actually only shows the 3 options that are actually available. But please notice that it is everything. It's not the 2, so it's actually showing 3 things here. It's not showing the 2 that are related to the product. So going back into our view, we actually want to change how our query set is for the form set. We'll say query set equals to self.getQuerySet, because we already set that query set. And now if we refresh in here, now we only see those 2 items. Cool, so that's a really good start. And now we can actually do some stuff with our form itself, but let's go ahead and post that data. And again, it says page not found because of what we did with our post data. But if we look at the stuff that's printed, it shows out all of these different forms. So it's saying form 0, price, form 1, price, and so on, which is really cool. So that means that it actually can be treated as an individual form. So back in our variation list, we can actually do something like this, which is first off formset.management_form. And then we can actually loop through our form. So for form in Formset, we can have our different various forms. So in for and then form dot as p, but we can also say form dot instance dot title, and we can also say form dot instance dot product dot title. I'll explain where those things are coming from in just a second. But if we refresh in here now, it's showing us the title, the price, sales price, and so on, which is really cool. So I can actually change things and do all sorts of stuff in here. But of course, this also means that I need to go back into my view to make sure that my post data, I actually handle it and I do something with it. So to do that, we'll say formset is equal to the variation inventory formset, and we're going to do request.post. We might as well request.files too. This is if you were uploading images or something like that, we would put those files in there as well. So in here we could say if formset.isValid, then we could do formset.save. And just like with the iterations inside of the variation list, we could also iterate through the form set. So I'm going to say commit equals to false. And I can say for form in formset form.save. You can also do that as well. So this will actually save that form set. And then after that, we might want to return a redirect of some kind. So let's actually import the redirect. And the redirect function allows us to go to the URL name. So I'm just going to say products. And then I also want to import messages. So from django.contrib, import messages. And then here we'll do messages.success of the request. And we'll say your inventory and pricing has been updated. Go back in here, hit update, and it actually did update, but we don't see the message itself. So let's go and look into our base. We actually haven't implemented that, so that's something we will do later. But for now, we can actually update these. So let's do $99 for the 16 gig MP3 player, and then I'll do $199 for the 251. Save that, go back into our MP3 player, and if we look at our variations, we see that it actually did save the MP3 player, or the first one. So why is it not saving both of them? And that has to do with our redirect here. So if we actually wanted to have our redirect happen correctly, we would do it after all of the forms have been iterated through, and then we would update and save the message. All right, so let's try that again. We'll actually update both of them again, 59 and let's say 99. Update, go back in, inventory, and there we go. So it's actually now allowing us to change all of this stuff. So this means that we can do all sorts of things with this too. So I can add in a price here, a sale price if we wanted, and we can update that. And then that's actually how we will eventually be able to update the product itself. So this product, when we click on one of these, it's actually going to change this price as well, which is something we still need to do. But also with inventory, there might be something else that we might want to add, which is whether or not this is active. So if it's an active product, so we can say active. Come back in here, and we refresh, and we can say whether or not we want this to be active. And also, if we did that extra of 1, we could always add more items here too. So this is when we might want the title to actually show up. So we come back and we add title in here, because if we're adding a new one, we probably want to have the title. So in this case, we can also change the title to however we'd like. So another one, let's just say 1 terabyte, and this is going to be $159.99. Inventory is unlimited. I hit this, and now we get this product ID problem. And that happens because when we go back into our view, how we save this stuff is actually causing a little bit of an issue for us. So to actually make the product itself work, we can create a function called getProduct, or we could just run this same stuff again. So we'll say product pk is equal to self.keywordArgs.get, pk product equals to get object or 404. We'll just leave it as that. We'll say product pk equals to product pk. And then finally form.product. Actually, what we'll do instead is we'll set the instance to something. So in here, I'll say new item equals to form.save, commit equals to false. So then we just do new item dot product equals to product, and then finally new item dot save. All right, so this is like what you would see in a normal form right here. And let's go back into our inventory and try that one more time. And I'll say title is 1 terabyte, price is $199.99. Inventory, we'll leave it blank, hit update, go back in here, and we now see that we have 3 different variations on here, which is really good. And then finally, going back into inventory again, we see all this. Perfect. So that is actually how we would do something like this if we needed to have our own inventory actually control on here. Of course, with this, since we can see the instance and we also have the query set, we could show all of that stuff in the variation itself. So the variation we would have inside of here, we could say our columns and put our inventory in here, object.inventory. All right, so that's it for this one. We have quite a bit of stuff that we covered in this. We can now change our things in the back end. Of course, all of this stuff you could have done in the admin itself. So inside of variations, of course, we can add and edit these things right in here, but you might want to have something that's a little bit more dynamic for your staff and also having a URL that's a little bit better for your staff as well. So in the next one, we'll actually make a mix-in that requires the user to be staff to actually see this stuff. All right, so if you have any questions, let us know. Otherwise, let's keep going.